I have trained for this moment.
You have trained for this moment.
I feel like a little bit of sweaty balls.
Yeah. Hey, we're recording now.
Oh no. Okay.
Welcome to the No Mercy Cobra Kai podcast. Fans of the TV series Cobra Kai featured on YouTube Red. I'm Donna Harris here with my special co-host Michelle Ross. Say hi, Michelle.
Hi there.
And we're here to talk to you about episode number 4 titled Cobra Kai Never Dies. Each week I have a different co-host discuss an episode of Cobra Kai with me, and this show was birthed from the 1984 film The Karate Kid, as we all know. Michelle, give us your fondest Karate Kid memory. But first, I want you to tell me how old you were when you first saw Karate Kid and how old you are now, just to give us a point of reference.
Okay. Karate Kid was... I believe I was maybe 10 or 11. I could be wrong because it just, when you're young, it kind of runs together.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I may or may not be 40, so that is a little. But I do remember the things about Mr. Miyagi, how he was very understated, and he was just this little man with so much power. And so he kind of took this Daniel's son, and he kind of took him under his wing, and he just showed him these little things that just were so important that, you know, kind of brought him up. And I think the thing that I loved the most about the movie was the chopsticks. Do you remember the chopsticks and the fly?
Yes.
And then Mr. Miyagi would try it, and then Daniel in the first try, he got it. And then Mr. Miyagi said, "Begin a luck." And that was like, we would always quote that in the house as "begin a luck."
Yeah, that's so great. You know, you're the first person to really reference the Karate Kid, like, actual scenes. I think a lot of people think about, like, who they were back then and what that meant to them. But you just made Mr. Miyagi so sweet right now. You just reminded us how sweet that movie was. I think we really loved Daniel LaRusso, but I think we equally loved Mr. Miyagi. And that makes me think about how, and I know that, you know, that's coming up in different episodes, which we won't necessarily discuss, but it does make me miss, you know, Mr. Miyagi when we think about just the whole Karate Kid idea and what we're into right now with Cobra Kai, and how, what would Mr. Miyagi look like and how would he be part of this world that we're into right now? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's kind of, he was almost a lesson in itself in the first movie that we don't have in this one. It's almost a lesson in nonviolence and just kind of like solving problems without being aggressive. And that was almost kind of like this little moral in itself that wasn't a big part of the movie, but it was just a nice thing that it's different. Like this new version is different, but it carried through. It got to me when I was a kid.
Yeah. And you're right. We're not seeing that yet, are we?
No,
because even as we approach episode 4, we're not seeing any soft and gentleness, but we certainly are seeing like a lot of tugging and pulling and pushing and pulling, and who's the real villain, and how do I wrestle with the fact that maybe I really do think Johnny's kind of a good guy in this bad boy way, and what's going on, Daniel? Why sometimes are you making these choices? I know you're protecting your family, but why are you so bent out of shape by Johnny?
And don't forget a couple puns. There are some really good puns in this episode, I would have to say.
Yeah.
You might miss them. I'll point them out.
Yeah, you have to point them out. But first, let's get started on the beginning of the episode, and it shows us a new insight into the character Robby, which is Johnny's son. And this is where we see him at the computer repair store, and at first you probably think that he works at the computer repair store, and then you realize very quickly that he is there to steal that computer. And so he steals the computer, he gets on his skateboard, and he rolls over a flyer, which he promptly picks up and sees it's his dad. And his friend says, "What do you want to do, karate, man?" And he's like, "No, it's my effing dad." And, you know, that's where we find out that, like, Robby is kind of, I don't know, he's almost a delinquent kid that's just as lame as his dad, you know? Yeah. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Michelle?
I don't know. First of all, I don't know if he's more embarrassed that his dad is a karate goer, or if his dad is actually on a flyer. Because who's really on a flyer anymore? Right. It's like, yeah. Man, my dad is on a flyer. How lame he is on a flyer.
Right.
No, and I mean, I think I feel like he's kind of like in every teenager. He's got that little smirk going on, like he knows what he's doing, and so I feel like he's into trouble, but you can tell if he had the right guidance, he'd probably be okay. He's very smart. He's very got it together. You can tell when he's there, he's got the skills to be able to be a people person and solve these problems.
Yeah.
He just is taking the easy way out of, getting the easy money.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because you're really tapping into the fact that for a few minutes we're fooled by his persona that he plays, where he looks like the employee at the computer store, and we're like, yeah, he really does a good job playing that part, which means that if you can play that part, that means you probably can also be that. But he just has kind of gone the wrong way and hasn't had the right kind of upbringing. So I love that you kind of gave me a little pushback there, Michelle, because that's a good insight for sure. I guess what I'm saying, as we continue on through the episode, we see a few things that he's doing that are just not so, like, he's just not really doing a whole lot with his life, and that parallels his dad in the same way, where it's like, what are you doing, and we'll get to that point as we go through and kind of point by point go through the episode.
But you also too, like, going back, I did a little bit of research and went back to the old movie, but you also see his dad did the same thing with that original karate teacher. His dad was also like, you could tell, and you could still see it in his eyes. He's got that little bit of that, like, lost puppy, like, please, like, I am, like, begging for what do you call it, like, acceptance or somebody to, like, validate me, and he is looking for that in his karate teacher, who is just terrible. And I think it's the same thing with his son. He has that, he needs to be validated, and so I think that's what he's searching for, just like his dad. But the apple falls pretty close from the tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that another point you bring up is just the fact that it seems like a lot of these individuals, we're talking about, say, Sam, Daniel LaRusso's daughter, even Johnny and Daniel, they're always caught in these situations where outside it may not exactly match their insides, right?
Yep.
And so I think that's a lot of what you're also saying is, inside they can be so different or want to be so different, but it's their outside circumstances that they've kind of got caught up in.
Right.
That it's like they're almost in a position where it's like, can't beat them, so I'll join them, so to speak.
Right. Or also it's kind of like, sometimes you find yourself in situations that you have parts of your personality that tend to make the easy way out really simple. Like, if you are a good people person, like, it's kind of easy to manipulate somebody into what I want. And so you could use that well, but if you find it to be your advantage when you're young, it's easy to make that to turn that the wrong way. So I think that is probably what's happening a little bit here.
Good points. Well, the other thing I just have to mention, and this is probably a reference nobody's going to get. I don't even know if people know this actor, but the actor that plays Robby looks a lot like an actor who's since passed away. But to me, he looks just like Jonathan Brandis. Does anybody know who that is?
From the... Oh my goodness.
So he was in the movie Ladybugs with Rodney Dangerfield. That was a soccer movie. And he played on a TV show that was like with whales or something. I can't remember.
Was he also with the Tim Taylor?
No, I think you're thinking Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
I cannot get these celebrities' names right. I am completely off. I cannot even do that. I'm a mom. It's this mom thing, right?
But I had to throw that out there because I could not get over it. But the thing that a lot of people on YouTube are saying in the comments is that this particular character, Robby, he looks a lot like Terry Silver. And Terry Silver is a character that's in Karate Kid 3. And Terry Silver is... Kreese's best friend. Kreese is the sensei of Johnny. And so I just had to mention that as well, that, Kreese was connected with Terry Silver. Terry Silver looks a lot like Robby. I don't think that there's any real connection there, but I think that people are really reaching for seeing a lot of these parallels because you do see so many, which makes the viewing of this series so fun. We see so many parallels, so many homages, so many twists. and reversals of fun things that really connect us to the original movie.
And who would have known that your Karate Kid trivia would come in handy, except for this very moment?
Right.
All of these things that you would have remembered.
Right. Yeah. We feel like vindicated that we know so many fun things about Karate Kid. So moving on with the timeline, Johnny's on another drinking binge, and he's like on a downward spiral of being hated by Miguel's mom, because that's where we left in episode 3. And the cherry on top is seeing Daniel LaRusso's face on a billboard. He's walking down the street drinking and then thinking about, oh man, Miguel's not in my life anymore. His mom hates me. And then boom. Once again, just hatred ensues the minute that he sees Daniel LaRusso's face. It just happens that way. And so he looks over at a kid that's spray painting, and he's like, can for can, and trades them cans, right? And this brings us to a point where I have to get a little personal here. I was so happy that Michelle was going to be my guest host, because we are going to talk a lot about wieners today, and we're going to call them wieners because we are not comfortable with saying a lot of the other words. But, I will say the C and B's, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The C and B's.
That's a medical term.
Yeah. C and balls.
Yep.
C and balls. C and balls, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we end up later seeing that on the billboard, but let's walk through how Daniel finds out it's on a billboard. Daniel's
Which
always
is amazing. This is so amazing.
He's always living the charmed life, right? He's driving his car. He's like, yeah, I'm having a great day. He looks at Tom Cole's billboard. He's like, I hate that guy. And then next minute, he's on the phone with his wife, and she's like, have you seen the billboard, honey? And he's like, oh, Tom's got nothing on me. And all of a sudden, mother! And it's like the best comedic moment. It's the best. And Michelle and I have agreed that there are words we don't say and there's ways we don't behave, but we certainly will enjoy watching a scene in a TV show like that and just crack up.
It just, it brings out the inner 12-year-old. It brings out the inner middle schooler. Anything like that you see, and you just cannot stop laughing. It is awesome. There's so many little points in this TV show that make me so happy, and that was one of them. Just seeing that on there, like, I could not stop laughing.
Oh yeah, it was, and like the laughter ensues. It continues to get funnier, right?
Yeah.
Like this is one of the funnier episodes.
Oh yeah.
He gets into the dealership, and that's when you're seeing so much with, like. His wife is his yin to his yang for real. And that's kind of a funny way to put it, considering what we're talking about right now. But anyway, she's so good about talking him down, right?
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And he's like, it's everywhere. Everybody's going to see it. She's like, oh, nobody even looks at the billboard. He's like, that's why we picked the billboard, because of the traffic. And she's like, we'll think of it as you'll blow away the competition. I mean, everything. So good. Right? So funny.
She said it has taken over it is that billboard now. It is not your billboard anymore. You have to relinquish control. That is not your billboard anymore. I mean, how can you not make every single crack about it? I even think of like what I would say to make him feel better, and I'm like, I would take every dig. I would take every single dig to make him
you
so
said
uncomfortable.
Dig, right?
Yeah, yes, I did. I said dig.
Yeah.
Digging balls.
Yes. And so, I just think she does such a good job, just like you're saying, Michelle, because I think a lot of us wouldn't have that straight face. And she just is trying her best to calm him down. He's feeling a little entitled. He's got the cop there saying, you better arrest this guy. And she's like,
oh, yeah. And how would you like to be that cop and have somebody so enraged and be like, can you please find the perpetrator who did this to me?
Yeah.
Like, can you please? He defaced my face, and like, just even like, how would you do that and not crack up? That's so funny.
I know. It is so funny. And I just sometimes I think this is where we can really start to see when we think about the psychology of everything and what we think and know and love about Daniel LaRusso, and how now we look at him and we're like, okay, we see a little bit of how we enjoy Johnny more than we ever did before because we're seeing more of him. And these are parts of Daniel that were kind of like, Daniel, you're kind of taking it a little too far. Like, chill out a little bit. You want this guy like to be like hung in the middle of town square, whoever it may be at this point. So yeah, he seems a little entitled. I don't know. How did you feel about that?
I kind of enjoyed the fact that it turned around and you see him growing up, just kind of like how a lot of us do, or, where you're this, awesome. And you kind of like that, you peak in high school, you see, ideally, like I think everybody, like you're physically, whatever. Or, at some point you have this like heyday and then you get older and like, adulthood happens and like things happen. And so all of a sudden you're finding yourself like you have a job and you don't really do very exciting things anymore. And so your comfort zone is much different than when you're younger. You're not like every day is today. It's just tonight. Everything is just slower and more lame, and we're not quite as exciting as we are. And so it's nice to see him, grow up and be kind of lame.
Okay. Oh, that's a good point. You see him growing up and being kind of lame.
Yeah.
I wanted him to be cooler than that. I wanted him to take it in stride, and he just got all worked up about it, which it says a lot because at this point he doesn't know that it's Johnny, right? So it's not like it's a thing like I want this guy to pay. It's part of within Daniel's personality, period. It's not a Daniel Johnny like versus issue. So that's a good insight into it too.
Well, and he's not the underdog anymore. So now he's the one, he's the guy, he's almost like the teacher that the kids are making fun of. So he's the one that's being set up that everybody is like, he's the one to kind of defeat now. Yeah.
Well, you said teacher that the kids are kind of making fun of. I think you're talking about the fact that maybe he's a little nerdy, a little dorky.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's the stickler. He's the dad. He's a stickler, he's the boss, like all of these things that it's so funny when you kind of like stick it to the man, when you stick it to your dad or you stick it to the boss, like all these things it's just kind of, I don't know.
It's comedy.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a height of comedy.
Right. And I have to talk about the part where his cousin, who is his employee, in the other room, he's like, did you guys see the billboard? It's freaking hilarious. That's like the best part.
Yes. I actually looked him up because I thought I'd seen him before. I thought for sure he was a...
You know why?
Why?
It's not... I don't think it has anything to do with who he actually is. He looks like the actor Chris Penn.
Oh, okay.
So Chris Penn was Sean Penn's brother. He died a while ago of a drug overdose, but he would play comic scenes just like that guy.
I thought for sure he was a holdover from the 80s, but he's a comedian. He's done a lot of stuff like solo, a lot of like I think he's done like writing and he's done like a lot of shows, but like he's only got a couple acting credits. So I was really surprised going back because he's got a pretty powerful like
His name is Brett Ernst.
Yep.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, he looks like Chris Penn. And I can see why what you said. You said he's a comedian. Totally get it. He plays it so well. He plays that part. He's good comedy relief. It's a good little additive.
He doesn't know how to paint a billboard, though. I mean, do you know, like, you don't start from the outsides. Come on.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, Miguel's mom's nursing Miguel's wounds and trashing Johnny. She's mad, and Miguel's on the couch, and she's helping him because he's all beat up from the previous episode, but Grandma's in favor of Johnny in the background, and she's saying, why not just let him do the karate? And Miguel's mom says, no, I don't want you to have anything to do with that guy. I like the grandma a little bit. She brings a little, she grounds Mom a little bit.
Yeah.
She's probably the father figure in that relationship because Dad's not around. So Miguel's got a little bit of a dad right there kind of backing him up while Mom's soft on him. And Mom gets to be soft on him because Grandma's around. So it's a good relationship. But yeah, I like Grandma. But ironically, Miguel at that point is defending Johnny. He's like, he's a good guy. You don't understand, Mom. And at this point, this is where Johnny's like passed out on the floor in the middle of the day, again, with a beer near him because it's probably part of the warm beer that he passed out with. And his phone rings. He wakes up, takes a swig of his beer, and finds that he's getting a call from the principal about his son. And his principal says, hey, I know you guys are on your big canoe trip, but he's got to come back to school at some point. And he's like, what? Canoe trip? What's going on?
Yeah.
So this is the point where we kind of see Johnny step up as a dad. You know, he sees that there's a problem and he decides he's going to go take care of it. Like, my kid should be in school. And he leaves his apartment, and in leaving the apartment, he sees Miguel, and Miguel's like, hey, I really still want to be part of the dojo. And Johnny's like, the dojo's gone. We're done. You know, he's heartbroken. He feels like he messed up. Johnny messed up, that he can't do anything right. He's going to make things right with his kid. So he kind of cuts off Miguel and says, don't even think about the dojo anymore. It's over with. I'm going to go take care of my son. Did you see that as it's happening, that he was really focused on and dropping Miguel as he was trying to go for Robby?
I didn't catch that. I think mostly what I got was, I think a lot was he does a lot of stuff unintentionally. And so I see him like intentionally taking ownership of being a leader, but a lot of these things he's reacting emotionally. And so so when he's trying to be a leader of the, you know, so I think their relationship tends to be a little flip-flopped, because sometimes when he's acting emotionally, the kid that he is, you know, tutoring, or, you know, I don't know, dojoing or mentoring,
sensei,
yeah, exactly.
senseiing.
Yeah, exactly. So he tends to kind of like rise to the occasion and remind him of the purpose and the layer thing. So yeah, I completely went off track, but
no, you
yeah,
didn't. No,
okay.
I think what you're really saying, and I think that it is a little more insightful than my synopsis, is that it's really more about how Johnny feels and what he wants out of the situation. He isn't really thinking, I'm going to drop Miguel because my kid needs me more. It's kind of more like, I need this need to be needed, or this need to feel purposeful, or this, I need a win, and I'm going to go for my win. And at this point, it's like, all right, I'm going to go do this. And it's like you said, it's reactive. It's not even like thought. There's no thought behind it. It's just reactive.
And that's kind of what Cobra Kai would do.
Yeah.
That's how Cobra Kai would work.
Yeah, that's a good point. Although, you know, I think what we love so much about this series in general is that nothing really can land on like one idea, right? Because we see some softness behind Johnny even through the hard stuff. So
yeah, see, and that's funny too, because it's really been interesting for me to see him take the role of the dojo master and ninja master.
Yeah, like
because
the sensei.
he's still, yes, because he's still got that look in his eye for that big need to be validated and so you can see that in his eye. And so even when he does the like, hey, of everybody, like calling everybody to attention, it's just hard to like take him seriously, because I'm like, no, you're not, you want this affirmation. It's not like his teacher who like did not give a crap and was just ready to like beat the crap out of anybody. You could still see him like having like, you know, tenderness, and just kind of like, you can see there's a heart underneath there. I'm like, no, I see through you. I see through you.
Yes.
You're not tough.
I mean, let's talk about the fact that William Zabka is such a great actor.
Yeah.
I mean, because it emotes, he causes you to have so much emotion, and even that small scene where he's like, guys, listen to me, or whatever it is, that yell is that he does where he calls your attention.
Which, by the way, I've actually started to work with my kids. Like every time I need my kids' attention, I'm like, quiet. And that actually works. So
are you also telling them like no mercy and strike first?
That's not quite yet. Maybe a little bit later. I'm just starting going little by little.
Yeah. The lessons of Cobra Kai, the things we're learning. We're even learning parenting tips. Yeah. So at the high school, this is all happening throughout the timeline. Aisha is getting bullied. She's being called a pig. It's the worst to watch. It is the worst. And I've talked about this before, and I really do sincerely wonder, because I don't have teenagers, is this how it is in high school? Is this how it is? It's so sad, you know?
I don't know. It's been so long. I feel like everybody gets bullied at some point. I mean, I know like I was at some point. I didn't have it as bad as some people. Some people had it really bad. I bullied others. So I feel like it's almost this revolving wheel of kids just being nasty to each other. And that's just part of your getting older, and you don't have a lot of have a lot of impulse control, but you have a lot of intelligence that's getting up, that you're able to get right into that emotional depth. And so I feel like teenagers and middle schoolers will always have that ability to get right in there, but they won't realize the damage that they're doing until like the people come back with therapy and be like, you caused me years of therapy.
Yeah. You reminded me of two quick scenes of two totally different forms of entertainment. When John Mulaney, one of his older stand-up specials, when he said, he's scared of 12-year-olds because they'll say, you have feminine hips. And it's just like, they picked the one thing I'm insecure about. You're exactly right. And John Mulaney pointed us to that too,
yes.
And then, of course, Steve Buscemi and what was it? Which Adam Sandler movie was it when he put the lipstick on and he crossed off Adam Sandler's name off the list because Adam Sandler came back and apologized for all the years that he caused him. Oh, same thing. You said the bullying can carry on until high school, and then beyond high school, and then we can have therapy for it, and that's so true. Yeah. And, in that time, Sam is trying to become a peacemaker with Aisha. She's like, this is just the way it works. But at the same time, Sam is still like staying with her cool clique. She's trying to still be friends with Aisha, but she's like, I'm sorry they're bullying you, but I'm not really going to stick up for you. I'm just sorry it's happening. And it's just so unfortunate to watch, for everybody. I know we kind of had talked about this before we started recording, just the fact that we don't really always know what we want at that age. And we were talking more about boyfriends, but I think that Sam is stuck in that too. And it even comes to her friends. Like, you just don't know what you're doing.
Well, and it also sometimes when you get in really unhealthy relationships, when you are young or just actually not young, you can just do it at any point. When you are hungry for someone's affection and they are not very nice to everybody around but just you, then it makes you feel like you're special. And so that is sometimes when those relationships start to turn poorly or start to turn like make it go into abusive, but something like that where she's with that group and she's like, oh no, they're mean to everybody else but me. So that means I'm special. So she doesn't want to ruin what she has, but she doesn't realize that when she's gone, they are also mean to her.
Right.
And they will not stop being mean. So anyways, that's my,
you got a lot of psychological insight into that.
I could go for a lot of time.
We've talked about this before, and I know a couple of my guest co-hosts have said, she's just kind of hiding behind it, or maybe towing the line, but you've really brought a new level of that, of where it's not just that, but it's what you do get out of it, how you feel special in that moment, like the cool kids like me. And maybe it's because we kind of know, if we were in Sam's position, we kind of know, I'm not really that cool, but they're making me feel cool, So yeah, that helps us like rest with what she's doing. Like, okay, I can see why you're doing it, even though it's not probably your best choice that you're making. Right. And in that time, we're also seeing Kyler come up. And at this point, like for me, episode 4, Kyler is just the worst. After we saw him at dinner with Daniel's family, and he's just the biggest airhead, the biggest flake. You really see that there's really not a whole lot of substance to this guy. And the more and more we see him, the less and less we like him. And this is where he's like really excited about her date, and his friend in the background showing what the date's really gonna be about. He's such a bro. Yeah, exactly. Such a bro. Yeah, or a bruh. A bruh. Yeah, bruh. So, yeah, we're over Kyler, right? He's really built himself up for us to hate him. And we'd never want any of our kids, especially our daughters, near him, for sure. But, later we see how that kind of turns out, which I'd love to talk about in a minute. But after that, Tom Cole is the competing dealership. And again, the penis jokes. We're going back to Weiner's. Literally Wieners, because he sends over lunch and the employees, are loving it. I mean, what a fun day in the office, right? Wouldn't you love to be working at that dealership that day? What was it? 100? 100 wieners?
I don't even remember. But again, how could you not, even if you're friends with them, how could you not just dig that in? Just, there's so many jokes with that. So,
right.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And they had like a definition of like how he would like them prepared.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Michelle's going to make me say it. Long and thick. Yeah. So she goes, oh, yeah, okay. Long and thick on the order. Got it. That's what Daniel's wife says. And so it still continues to be funny. We're still 12 and we're still laughing. And then you mentioned also, Michelle, how I can't remember, the Chris Penn wannabe was painting the billboard and he doesn't know how to paint it for sure. But they get a little clue. They don't know yet, but they get a little clue that this was, not a dog up there painting the billboard.
It's the flyer. It was a flyer all along.
Right.
And it was a flyer.
Well, we see that in the end. But don't you remember what they first see? They're like, I stepped in dog poop.
Yeah, I didn't get that. So that was like bird poop? What was that?
No.
That was like...
Johnny pooped up there.
Oh, come on.
That was part of his vengeance.
Why? Who would find that? Just because he wanted to do the painter? Did he think LaRusso was going to go up there and paint it?
Somebody, yeah.
Oh, no.
Because the guy said, I stepped in dog poop, and the other guy was like, "Why? How would a dog get up here, dude?"
He needs some revenge consultation.
Right.
That's not a good move.
Yeah. I know. But that's our first like clue that somehow, some way he's gonna get found out, which, that it ends up happening. But at this point, we don't know. But we go back to Johnny. He's interrupting his son and his delinquent friends. They're watching, who knows what on TV. And then listening. Well, hold on.
So it was funny because I actually at first I was shocked. I was like, what's going on over there? But then I took a look. It's literally like a girl doing the splits in cut off shorts, but she's twerking while she's doing the splits, and it was so ridiculous. I was like, wait a minute, that's the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. At first I was like, what's that? But it's actually really funny if you watch it.
Well, see, this is where earlier when I said he's kind of as lame as his dad.
Yes.
This is what I'm talking about. Just the things that they're doing, it's that's just as lame as Johnny's life,
Right.
And I don't remember what they were listening to on the radio, but this is when, so many funny things happen because Johnny comes in, he starts using all the 80s verbiage and turn off that boom box,
Oh yeah.
And they're like, what's a boom box? And he's like, what's that on your face? And he's talking about that guy's hipster mustache. It's just all the things are so funny. I love when we get that glimpse into the fact that Johnny is not really present in 2018. Mm-hmm, he is still in high school, and I can't remember. He said something else too that just I can't remember. Let me think of it real quick.
Which some of it is funny because it hits home when you're like, oh, that's funny because it cuts through some of the stuff that we are, we need to be a little bit more real and then not as sensitive. And then he said some stuff and whoa, hold back. No, we can't say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I remembered what it was. It was, he's like, Robby, come on, I need to talk to you. I know school can be a drag. And that's such an 80s, back to school special,
right.
Phrase,
I was just thinking about that when I said Daniel was lame. I was like, do people say lame?
I'm
just gonna say lame.
I'm going with lame. Okay. But I feel
drag.
I'm still a couple points cooler than Johnny. I would never say school would be a drag.
Also drag, that's almost a compliment. You'd be like, yes ma'am, I am a drag, thank you very much.
yeah depend in 2018.
Yes please, I am a nice drag.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he's just still stuck so far back, and we always love it. We always laugh when we get reminded of where Johnny is in contrast to where the rest of the world is. But here's the part where I get really psychological or get into the psychology of everything, because this is where the confrontation happens between Johnny and Robby, and he's telling his son, listen, you got to go to school. And Robbie's like, dude, you've never been part of my life. Don't try to be part of it now, which in itself, that part hurts, right? But then he says, why? So I can go to school and then end up being a loser like you and having a strip mall dojo, and then goes one step further and brings up Daniel LaRusso. And it's that for Johnny, that's the end. Anytime that guy's face is seen, mentioned, talked about, heard, anything, that is his camel or straw that broke the camel's back for Johnny. And so the part that really got to me there was you really saw Robby push, and then Johnny finally goes, man, whatever, you do whatever you want. And that's when Robby says, yeah, that's right, you're gonna walk away like you always have. And it's one of those like self-protecting things that people do when they've always been hurt. They continue to hurt other people around them, and when those people do finally give up on them, they go, yep, self-fulfilling prophecy, I knew you were going to do that to me. But really, they kind of push them that way,
right?
You know,
right? Because you have control over it then,
right? Yeah. So I just saw so much into that. I'm like, I see that. I've seen that before. So I don't know. That was really that really brought a lot into the storyline for me about their relationship. You know. So when we move on, we see that Miguel and his buddies, Dimitri and Eli, they're in study hall, and they're talking about how it's a good thing Miguel gave up on karate, except, you know, Eli's a little bit like, I thought it was pretty cool you were starting to do that. And that's when Kyler comes and bullies them, pushes them around, stuffs their backpack in the trash, and the whole time, Sam is on the other side of those books at the library and saw what happened. And that's when we're like, yes, finally, Sam. How could you be so clueless after all this time? You never knew he was a jerk? You know? I don't know. How did you feel about that?
I don't know. I mean, I think it was kind of the same thing as with her friends. Like, I knew a lot of times there are these glaring issues that I think she probably had a bad feeling about, but it's one of those things where you're like, okay, I'm going to overlook it because I'm your friend. And then it goes farther. I'm going to overlook it because I'm your friend. So I think this was probably something that is hopefully going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, like what you're saying. So, yeah, I mean, I was glad to see it, but then it was kind of one of those things of course, in the movie, you know, hopefully, or in the TV show, is this going to make her have a decision, you know, that's going to make her change something? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing I guess I wondered was, you know, she saw all that happening, and then she still ended up going to the movies with him. I get that was like the scene, but I was so like, why didn't you just break the date off before the movie even started? She's like sitting in the theater all pissed off.
She doesn't want to cause a scene. That's why she's still friends with those nasty girls, is because you don't want to cause a scene. You don't. That's why we do this kind of stuff, is because we want to be a nice girl. We don't want to cause confrontation. That's who she is.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's true. And, you know, the one point we've never really brought up through this whole timeline that we're talking about that we failed to mention is, you know, Daniel's all like racked about this too. I mean, not just the peanuts on the billboard, but he's been really upset for a while about the fact that she's been pursuing Kyler and Kyler's been pursuing her. In one scene that, excuse me, one scene that we glossed over and didn't talk about was the breakfast scene where he wanted to make her Bananarama pancakes and she skipped out, you know?
Right.
And so she was just constantly just avoiding Dad. Maybe, like you said, maybe he was a little bit of an insight into her conscience and she didn't want to hear it. And then finally in the movie theater, she just decides, like, I'm done with this guy. And we see some sweet karate moves from her.
Oh, yes. I was so proud about that.
Yeah. So I was like, that's cool. That's totally like girl power right there.
Yep.
Yes. And it gets you excited. You know, as you go through the other episodes, you're like, oh my gosh, are we going to see some karate from Sam someday? That would be so cool.
I bet we will.
I would love it. I think it would be great. I mean, it definitely like ties back in the fact that, you know, Daniel and Sam had a mommy or a daddy-daughter moment at that one point where they did do karate together. So we know that.
Or possibly, I haven't seen the end, but maybe there's going to be a face-off between her and her former friend.
Aisha.
Yes. So
yeah.
Possibly, maybe.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I don't know.
Yeah. And so, but I think either way, just the whole setup and the fact that she does know karate and knows it well, you know, like, and it's still ingrained in her, even if she's not practicing. We love seeing the glimpse of that. And of course, as women, we love the girl power moment for sure. Like, I loved seeing her stick up for herself.
I wonder how many of us in walking around know karate secretly.
Yeah.
Like, how many people do you walk through in the grocery store, know karate, and could get you at any moment?
Yeah. Or legit could like take you down.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, there's the part with the marketing meeting that we have to talk about, because this is where, Daniel's wife is sitting with the two women from the marketing department, and she's like, we just need to go through and just revamp everything. Oh, by the way, don't mention the billboard. And Daniel comes in, he looks distressed, and he's like, it's just been a rough day. And the girl goes, yeah, we haven't seen the billboard. We're like, okay. But then, he gets insulted, which I don't know. You'll have to tell me your opinion, Michelle. But he gets insulted because she said it's great to come in and have somebody that already has a gimmick. Your whole karate bonsai tree thing, that really works. And he's like, that's not a gimmick.
That's because he's lame. That's because he's so lame because he peaked in high school and he's still riding that horse because he's lame.
Yeah.
So that whole scene about going from there. Oh, okay. That whole scene going from there to Tom's video, I could watch that over. That was so funny.
What was the part you liked the best about
it? I think that video, how ridiculous that video was, and knowing that Daniel was getting more and more pissed every time he was watching.
Yeah, you're talking about Tom's video.
So coming up in a minute, so probably not where we are right now.
No, you're right. No, let's talk about that. So all I remember is the musket and the cactus, and
you must get down here, and showing the cactus and all these things that are directly 180 degrees from everything that LaRussa is doing.
Yeah.
Because
not only that, but definite digs. Like, remember, he's like, get a cactus because you don't have to water it like you do some other bonsai tree.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And it's like totally like a farce gimmick.
Yep.
And it was really funny to see. And didn't Daniel just like up and walk out? I can't remember, but he was like done, especially after getting 100 wieners for lunch sent to his house, his employees.
I don't remember. I was laughing too hard at the musket. I just I couldn't. I don't know. I just thought the whole thing was awesome.
It was.
I loved it.
Well, that is when he goes and confronts Tom at his dealership.
Yes.
And this is the boba tea moment.
Yes.
Michelle said when she said, I want to do an episode with you, but it has to be the boba tea one. So I was like, what's the boba tea one? I couldn't remember the boba tea incident. And I know a lot of people are listening right now and they're like, what? You didn't remember that? Because that is a really pinnacle point to the show.
Yep.
Because we finally see, this is the first time in all of the episodes that we actually see Daniel do some sort of karate. Right?
Yeah.
He gets pushed to his limit. Tom Cole says some really funny things. It's just funny, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he doesn't relent. And so tell me why that scene was so like pinnacle to you.
Well, I think, and the thing with this series that is so funny is there are a lot of key moments or key events that highlight almost kind of like storyboarding frames where people are like, this is going to be something this story is going to, this is going to go viral. Like, people are going to be like, he roundhouse kicked a boba tea out of this car salesman's, and all these different things, like, just retelling that story is hilarious. But I mean, how hilarious is it for two car salesmen to have almost a going at it where one guy roundhouse kicks a boba tea out of his, like, you can't even like, that is just so funny.
So you're talking about the fact it's like ridiculous.
It's just ridiculous.
And hilarious.
Yes.
And I think that's what kind of keeps us going too. Some of the, like, there's so much real, like when you talked about how Johnny, or the fact that I went back and said William Zabka's such a good actor, and when he said quiet, you see so much in the pain in his face and the softness in his face. So we're like connected with that, just the heart of it. And then we have a boba tea incident and we're like, what? But it's fun. It keeps the levity in all of it.
And I think one of the things that I really appreciated about this whole series is that it takes it back from kind of how The Office, how things are very sporadic and how storylines kind of come out of nowhere. And we go back to when things were predictable and the story was predictable and you knew that a climax was coming. And so you're like, okay, a joke is coming. Here it comes. Here's the joke.
Yeah.
And then it's all of a sudden, so you knew what to expect, and then it was comfortable and you're laughing. And so it was a really boring, comfortable place to be. But coming back, we're like, oh yeah, that was fun. So you knew something's happening. He's coming up. He's walking to the thing. You see him getting mad. The music is coming up.
Yeah.
Whoa, he kicks the boba tea.
Yeah.
And so that's what is kind of making it familiar to us as we're older.
Yes.
Because that is that same framing as when we were, younger watching that.
Yes. We've talked about this before, but it's really like it's nostalgia that really connects us with this. And you're talking about just the nostalgia of the formula of these older stories.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a great point. But I think what makes it fresh is just the take that they have on it, the comedy that they use. I mean, it's nostalgic in its framing, like you mentioned, and then we have just so many funny things. Even again, going back to just the fact that Johnny's stuck in 1980 whatever, but it's 2018. All those things are funny, but it's still got a little bump at the end.
And you'll see that also. You see that on the. I forget. There's a fight in the cafeteria. So there's also different things where, not in this episode, in another episode, where you see these events starting to come, and it's very clear that these events are starting to, like, a big event is coming, and so you get amped up for it. And so when it happens, you cheer, and it's like you get excited, and it's almost kind of like you see this touchdown coming, and it helps you get ramped up a lot.
Yeah. Now, one thing is, you're saying how it can be such a positive thing to get amped up, but one thing I've noticed is there are a lot of people on YouTube that made comments on this video, and they criticized that kick of Daniel's, like, just that the form was off, that his leg wasn't stretched out.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
Okay.
It was so bad. Yeah, no, I probably could have done a much better job. I would have loved to see, like, a high splits, like, nice, like, form, like Chuck Norris kind of thing. So I was a little disappointed, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna complain. I'm not gonna complain. So
well, and it's still. He's 56 years old.
Oh, he is?
Yes.
He looks really good for 56. He looks really good for 56.
Yes, doesn't he?
Yes.
That's the thing. And so it's like Ralph Macchio, in real life, we love Ralph Macchio, right? Like, he's always going to be a sweetheart. He's just going to be that cutie. Even though he's 56, he's always going to be 16.
Right. Right.
And so we can't fault him, but I did find it interesting that a lot of people criticize that kick. So,
well, and I think sometimes that's when sometimes if you have that background, sometimes that'll, like, take you out of the movie. Like, it wasn't that big of a thing for me. I was just excited because I was like, he kicked the boba tea. Yeah. But I could see going back, you're like, well, he could have straightened his leg or done a bigger split or whatever. So,
well, but a lot of people argued, like, this was a big thing. Now, some people said, that kick was lame. The other people said he's 56. And then some people said that this was intentional. Like, it was showing that he hasn't done karate in a while and that his heart was in it, but maybe his form wasn't there yet. He had to get back into practicing karate, and that this was going to be, like, just a catalyst to really get him excited about getting back into karate, like really doing karate, not just in word, but in deed, because it's just been in spirit for so long at the dealership with the bonsai tree and the karate, so to speak, quote, gimmick at the delership.
They missed an opportunity to show him icing his thighs when he got home, because that's really what would have happened if you would have done that without stretching.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting. I'll be curious to know, because I haven't gone all the way through it to see how that goes.
How that plays out.
But I have been impressed with the fight, I don't know, with the fight choreography or the whatever that, I don't know. I know that's a whole nother ball game in terms of, like, special effects and, like, fighting, dialect coaches. So I've been very impressed with what they've done. I don't know, like, what kind of budget or anything that they're working with, but whatever was, I'm pretty pleased with how they're doing that.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're doing a great job too. And we did talk a little bit about that when we talked about how Johnny was fighting those teens, and my co-host then mentioned that it was interesting because when they would, like, throw punches, sometimes they didn't make the punch that they threw, and that made it more authentic than to always have contact and that sort of thing. So they did more of, like, an authentic choreography when it comes to, like, fight choreography. Yeah. One of the saddest moments in this, I would almost say this whole series, but we're talking just about this episode, was when Johnny's at the restaurant. He's eating by himself, and he looks over and he sees a tiny kid with his father.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's heart melting. I don't know. I don't care who you are, man or woman. dad or not dad, mom or not mom, you just feel for Johnny in that moment. Like, you really feel for him.
Yeah.
Because he just came off of an altercation with his son. And it's just another testament how he feels like he's failed in so many areas of his life, But it's in that predictable, same formulaic property that we have going on in this episode where now this is rising to something. And then you see Johnny at the doorway of somebody's door and he says, I messed up, but if you let him come back, I'm really going to come through for him this time. And you think he's talking to Robby's mom.
Right.
But that's not what's happening. It's Miguel's mom. And so this is him saying, come on, let Miguel come back. I want to train him. I want to be his sensei. I want to go back to the whole dojo thing. He keeps going back to Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai is like his safe place, is Johnny's safe place. That's where he goes when he's feeling like I failed. He goes to something that he knows. And I really think that goes back to the Karate Kid movies. I think that's really part of who he is.
Well, that was his family. That was his, I don't remember what his family, if they showed his family structure when he was growing up, but you could tell that sensei was his dad. Like, that was his family structure because that was a lot of structure there.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we do see that a little bit in previous episodes where we just see stepdad saying, this was your life and I just want to drop you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. So it really points to the fact that, we really saw that Johnny didn't have anything but Cobra Kai. Mm-hmm. And so he had a dysfunctional father in a sensei and he had a dysfunctional father and a stepfather. So he picked, I guess, for him, the lesser of two evils, which was Cobra Kai, But, happy endings start to come back around because then we see at breakfast again, this time Sam is ready for Bananarama pancakes and everybody is happy because she said, I don't think Tyler's going to be coming around anymore. And Daniel just cannot hide his excitement. He is loving it. The day is great. And another happy ending is for Johnny because Miguel comes back and he walks into the studio and everybody is so happy. But the funniest part about that to me is Johnny gives him like the first backwards lesson that he can give him, which is the best defense is more offense. He just really starts filling him with all the Cobra Kai principles, you know? So we see how that's really going to pour into who Miguel is going to be, and how he's going to really come to know karate in a way that's that whole strike hard, strike first, no mercy, So Daniel's riding high. He gives the finger to Tom's billboard, and then he sees his billboard intact. Every life is good,
and
right?
Also, and with my favorite song in the background.
What is that? I can't remember.
So it's Bruno Mars' "Perm," which
okay.
also has an amazing, pun. Which has an amazing pun in it. It says, put a perm on your attitude because you need to relax.
Yes.
Get it?
Yes.
So, and it's an amazing song. So I have it on my playlist all the time.
Yeah. And we for sure agree that Daniel needed to relax a little bit this episode. But yeah, he relaxes a little bit, but he's getting his way. That's part of it.
But that's what makes it so funny is because he's not relaxing. And so all these things, if you get like a big wiener on your face and you're not relaxing, that's what makes it so funny. It's because you just need to relax.
For sure. Well, and then the episode ends with Daniel seeing who actually was responsible for the C and balls pick on the billboard, which was, he sees the flyer. The flyer. And it's just like, that's it again. And the same kind of fire that gets lit in Johnny when he sees Daniel's face, it's the same kind of fire that gets lit in Daniel when he sees Johnny. It's just that high school still bothers you 30 years later. That's it, right? You still can't get over it.
Yeah. It's so few. It's such a small amount of time, and so it means so much. And it's so funny because you have such a big amount of the rest of your life, but it's so the years are so formative, and it's hard. Yeah, it's hard when there's just one time to go through it. I wish you could go back and like do it multiple times or have like prep. Yeah. Have prep to do it.
Yeah. I think ultimately you're right. I think people really do feel like that, but you hear more people saying, I'd never go back to high school if I had the chance because
oh no, I don't want to go back. I never want to go back, but I would I would, well, I don't know.
I think you just do it differently. You do it differently.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd make some waves and make some change and you'd tell those mean girls, Moon and Yasmin to, you're not as cool as you think you are. You wouldn't worry. You wouldn't worry about that stuff because it's such an abbreviated time.
Right.
It would be so nice to have everything figured out, but it messes with us and then it messes with us forever. Then 30 years later, it's still messing with Daniel and Johnny.
Right. Well, Donna, I think you need to print out some flyers for your podcast. I think you need to put them around some places, maybe pin them up at the grocery store.
Hey dudes, I got a sweet podcast. You can listen to it on your phone. That's really smart.
Kind of gnarly.
Yeah, kind of rad. Yeah. So we play 2 games as we end the show. The first one is called Who's Hotter, and it's just pitting Johnny against, Daniel and saying who is hotter this episode. And we're also going to play the game of who wins the dojo points of this episode. And we're going to tally up these dojo points so that at the very last episode, we are seeing who ultimately won. But first, I'm going to talk about who was hotter this episode. So as we talk about it, sometimes my formula changes, but I will say for me, the word hotter is a loaded word. Okay.
So that is something, so I am not going to judge on that just because I'm going to go by the golden rule, because I would not want Sean to...
Your husband.
I would not want Sean to be like, hey, I'm going to gauge how hot this... We just don't play like that.
Right.
So I will pitch in, but it's going to be... It probably is not going to be me like judging and kind of like giving a hotness or so it's going to be, I'll give input on some on some way, but it's not going to be probably in the form of kind of like
who
that.
won.
Who won.
Well, so I will just say I really gotta, it's hard because you see a lot of effort on Johnny's part, and so effort really looks good. It can be attractive. I don't know. I'm going to give it to Daniel for the boba tea kick because it was the best kick that a 56-year-old could pull off. So Daniel was hotter for this episode. And, we're going to move on to dojo points. So let's say who won the episode. So I will give it to you, Michelle. Overall, who do you think won the episode? Who came out of this episode as the champion? Who's the actual winner? Would it be Daniel or would it be Johnny?
So it's so hard to overlook the boba tea kick. I think if you were to go into the real moral of the story, it would be Johnny. But I'm going for entertainment value only, and I'm going to say Daniel LaRusso for the boba tea kick. So Daniel LaRusso is the champion.
He gets the dojo point from you.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Well, that's going to be interesting because I'm going to give Johnny the dojo point. I think that he won the episode. I think overall he tried so hard. He did the best that he could, be it whether or not he was actually being intelligent with it or just going with his gut. He really was trying to come through for his son. He made the effort. We forgot to talk about the fact that he went and he chased down his ex-wife and tried to find her to find his son. He really even had a lot of humility in crawling back to Miguel's mom and saying, I'm sorry I messed up. I'll do whatever I can to get him to come back, and this time it'll be different. Of course, he says, gives him some backwards lesson in how to fight. But he's just, for me, he's just that he keeps showing me that he's trying. And I think that he won the episode. And really, when you contrast that to what Daniel did this time, Daniel just got taunted. And I don't think he handled it very well. I don't think
No, he doesn't. I wasn't, if you go for deep, meaningful character issues, Johnny won. He did.
So you're gonna keep your point? You can do it.
No, I'm not basing on character.
So
I'm going on show alone.
Showmanship.
Entertainment value alone.
Daniel won.
Don't care. Daniel totally won.
Okay, so we got 1 point for Daniel.
Yep.
I'm going to put it on my board, and 1 point for Johnny. And we're going to see as we move on through these episodes who ultimately is going to win the most dojo points. So Michelle,
it's going to be Tom. It's going to be Tom with the Patriot and the cactus
and his 100 wieners, long and thick. So yeah. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for coming and talking with me about this super fun series. We are loving it so much. So excited that they've announced a season 2. So maybe we'll have even more to continue to talk about. But you listeners, I've appreciated you so much tuning in. Thanks for listening. And thanks again, Michelle, for being here.
Thank you, Donna.
Bye, guys.